right, so this is just a panel discussion. It's an opportunity for you all to ask questions, maybe about workshops that you've attended, workshops that you didn't get to attend. So our speakers are here. If you have questions, we'll just like raise your hand. I'll call on you, I guess, and you can ask your question. Say like, oh, I'm asking a question for Barb, and then you can, or like, this is a question for the panel in general, just so we kind of know who to gear it toward. So, yeah, well, we can start off. Does anyone have? Right.
Dealing with a difficult boss.
How does one deal with a difficult boss?
Woman boss.
Female boss.
Controlling.
Micromanaging bosses? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I think because many of the ladies here are at the top levels of leadership, if I have a memory of a difficult female boss, and the older Barb now looks at that memory differently than younger Barb. She was the only female manager in the office. And from this perspective now, I can see how much of her behavior was driven by the stereotypes that we have to confront, some of the struggles of trying to figure out how to be a manager in the office. But practically speaking, back then, I remember having just a sit-down conversation with her. And so all I can say for me as a female manager is that I hope that I am a person that people can come and sit down and speak candidly with. And if there's someone in my environment who's struggling with me, that to think through and go, how much change can I make, and how much change am I asking the other person to make? We all still have power in figuring out what that power is. I think that often that can be the greatest challenge. So wherever your power lies, and how can you use it effectively in that situation?
I'll go next. A couple comments. I would encourage any participant to read the book by Kim Scott. It's called Radical Candor. And it really focuses on our struggles with having clear lines of communication on all levels, whether that's your manager, you have to talk to or talk with someone that you feel is a difficult manager. It helps us to realize that we are very fearful of having those open conversations with individuals. I can say anytime I've had constructive criticism for maybe my tone or my mannerism comes from very strong individuals, but I was very appreciative of that constructive criticism because maybe I didn't understand that's how you were feeling when I was talking to you. It could be, from my perspective, when I'm a manager, I learn every individual that I manage directly, their unique skill sets, how they communicate, and what they do not like about me as a manager. So I watch their body language, I watch if they tense up to have a conversation, but I also explain to them that I need them to provide that feedback back to me. So a suggestion for you would, again, sit down. I don't know what your comfort level is with your with her in particular, but if you feel like you can have somewhat of a conversation, you can just, if she makes a statement, you can say, you know, Anita, you know, a couple of your comments you made, I kind of took in, you know, negative manner, and then see if she'll adjust.
Yeah, I think I'm echoing what those ladies have said. Open and honest communication is so important. Sometimes I find that if I'm having a challenge dealing with someone, and I think, let's be honest, no matter where you work, there are going to be challenging people to work with. But I think in terms of authority figures, you know, for me, a great way to really open up the dialogue and build rapport with someone is to ask for feedback on my performance, which can be a bit hard to do when you already don't click with someone. But I think that showing that goodwill, that you want to improve, that you want to work with them, and being really open and receptive to that critique and feedback is a way to really build rapport with someone, especially a superior.
One of the other things that we have worked on, and that is getting them out of the office. When you're working with your manager, lots of times nobody asks anybody to go to lunch. So going to lunch, getting out of the office and saying, hey, how's your day? And lots of conversations can go in many different directions about, you know, what can I do better to help you? And then really just by asking those questions, you feel it, and it's quite amazing how the rapport can be developed.
I think there's a concept about managing up And you need to understand, we all need to understand that we have a responsibility not just to manage the folks that report to us, but we're reporting up. And when you have someone who's micromanaging, generally they're managing out of fear. And so you need to find out what that fear is, and maybe there's something that you have that can alleviate that fear, especially when it comes to your performance.
Well, our son actually had this situation in residency after medical school, and an attending, a female attending who was his boss, who was very, more than difficult to work with, almost to the point where she was just pretty much pushing people away with behavior. And I do think that in those situations, the manager or the director is used to pushing people away, and then people fall in the way because that is just the personality. So he and I talked about it, and we worked through the patience that's needed, the almost working harder than you typically would work, and things slowly turn around. And I do think that that's a little bit of the beauty of women. I think that women will recognize a relational progression perhaps a little bit better. So, so a lot of patience sometimes is definitely needed just to break through that continual pushing away.
Other questions?
Hi, I was wondering, in a lot of your fields, like it's mostly male dominated, but how do you sort of establish yourself when you're sort of already undermined from the minute that you walk in the room due to your gender? How do you establish yourself from there? For the panel, I guess.
Walk into the meeting prepared and confident. I talked about this in my session, that while you might not be the most intelligent person in the room or the most versed on whatever the subject matter is, you come in very prepared and knowing that you're walking into a room with individuals that don't see you on the same level. So having that sort of protection, you go in with a little more confidence, knowing that you're already walking into a room, that you're setting yourself up for questions, and then being prepared and raising your hand, speaking up, so they know that you're actively participating, and that shows your confidence level as well.
I would say a big thing that's important that I've learned in the workplace, and I talked about it a little bit in my session, is women supporting women. Knowing, your fellow women are your allies. You're not each other's competitors. Working together, collaborating with them, having mentors was huge for me, and especially as a young professional who was navigating this huge workforce and trying to figure out where I fit in. And going along to her point about projecting confidence, even if you don't have it, it's really important that you don't come in think, oh no, like I don't really know what I'm doing or saying, and really kind of channeling that inner confidence, and it comes through in how you articulate yourself and how you present yourself. And I think that does help with the rapport you make with other people and other coworkers.
The other thing I would add also is, you were alluding to it, and that is body language. When you come into the room, own your own space. And I've seen women, and we talk about it, and we go to them and say, don't come in and go, gee, I'm sorry, I just want to ask this question here, will not bother you. I've seen women do that. And we need to build on that confidence so that we can bring others along with us. And it's also that body language of sitting up straight and taking a deep breath and owning your space, because you deserve to be there.
I think too, don't ignore the politics. It's a fact of life, and the preparation isn't just your knowledge. It's also knowing who's around the table and creating allies. And if you ignore that, regrettably, you could be undermined for no good reason.
Know that you're not alone. This to me, being working with law students, is not a gender issue necessarily. There are a lot of guys that are pretty young and come in and are thinking about what they do. And exactly what Carrie said, even in the courtroom, we say your first impression is so important, the way you walk into that room. And one thing that we teach is to check it out first. Go into the courtroom, make sure you know where you're going to be sitting. Make sure you don't sit at the defendant's table if you're the plaintiff's attorney. But it's familiarity, so that it does give you confidence. You know, even if you go into a conference room and just check it out and become familiar with it. It breaks through a type of barrier that I think gives you a confidence as you walk into that room, and then you go from there.
One of the best gifts my grandmother gave to me was when she realized I was going to be tall, was that she made me walk around with a book on my head. I slouched all of the time. And one summer, I just had to walk back and forth in her living room with a book on my head. And how grateful I am for that instruction. Because as the other ladies have alluded to, how you walk into a room matters. And so even now, it is a great way for you to practice standing tall, because you matter, you have value, you have something important to share, and your body, it should be the first messenger to that fact.
Yes.
Can you speak to the role mentorship has had in your career, either as a mentor or being mentored?
I actually had all male mentors through my career. I work in a predominantly male industry, manufacturing, engineering. I was fortunate enough to prove myself in the beginning that I was a hard worker, I was a quick learner, I would pretty much do anything, I put the hours in that were needed. So I had individuals that saw that spark and that willingness from me, that they took me under their wings, and mentoring or throwing me to the wolves, one or the other happened. I just kept learning as much as I could. So mentoring can come from females or males. The one thing you want to do is find those experts in your field and really attach them, build a relationship with them, get comfortable with them, so you can, like Carrie said, know your space, ask the right questions, be comfortable going to ask them questions when you need assistance or help, so you can learn and be confident in your craft.
I would say you do not succeed by yourself. It takes people in your life. No one does it on their own. So however you define a mentor, you need people.
I personally have had several mentors, but two stand out in particular. Both were other women. The first was my mentor very early on in my career, and she taught me a very valuable lesson very early on, and that was you need to have a thick skin. Because sometimes I would tend to find myself very insecure about how people perceived me, about what I talked about a lot of different things. And she was kind of the one that was just like, kind of going along the lines of what we talked about be confident, have a thick skin, believe in what you're saying, believe in your abilities, believe in what you're doing. And that was a huge step for me to kind of go over the threshold of being kind of a newbie to feeling like I was a more established professional. And then the other mentor I had is actually a current colleague of mine who helped me get better professionally. So in my field, I do a lot of writing, and I speak on the record, and so she gave me lots of tips and helped me to get better at my craft. So I think there are different mentors for different things, and they come in different phases. And so it's finding that mentor right when you need them for what you need. That's really valuable.
I didn't really grow up in the mentoring age. So I would define mentoring as something different. When I think back, I think more that there were more men who supported me, who saw something in me, called me for jobs. Probably one woman who was a partner with me in a law firm. And we supported one another and mentored one another quite a bit. So I think when you look at, it's important to see those things. It's important to see the people who have been instrumental in your life, and whether it be a sit down weekly sessions, or it be someone who has identified something in you and then supports you and encourages you as you go forward. I think for me those would be the mentors in my life.
For me, mentoring is a part of life that just flows in and out. And so as someone who has been mentored, it's not just something I've benefited from when it's somebody face-to-face. Years ago, I heard a speaker talk about distance mentors. So there are people in my life that I've never met, but I read everything they write, I watch everything they speak, I track them down, and I just follow after them because they have a particular skill set that I can learn from. And so you don't have to limit yourself always to someone who's right in front of you. It can be someone in a field that you love. And then on the flip side, as being a mentor, a lot of folks, especially women, go, I need to have XYZ level of expertise. You really only need to be a half a step in front of the person. If you have something that you've learned and there is someone in their life that's struggling, you don't have to make it super sophisticated. It's, hey, do you want to meet for a cup of coffee and talk about life? I write about mentoring structures because I think often for women, it feels like, oh, I have to be like this expert and solve everything. You don't. You just have to be available and willing.
Another question?
I have one. And this, there are a lot of us, it depends on what field we're in, what skill we need as far as a hard skill. We have at least 3 CEOs sitting on this panel, so tell me, what would you consider the top soft skills that we should develop?
Listening, really listening, active listening, listening with your heart is the most important thing. We talked about emotional intelligence, and it's key. Absolutely.
I think just exactly what you said, being able to connect with your people. For us in particular, we're all over the place, and you have to develop the skill to walk into a location and go, something's wrong here, or this is exactly what we want to have happening. And sometimes you don't have much time, so you have to develop that inner sense. And lots of times when I talk, this, to a group like this, I talk about passion and knowing that it comes from here, but it's also that gut instinct that comes from that passion that comes from here. I truly believe women have an instinct, and it's up to us to listen to it and to believe it. You can call it lots of different things, but recognizing you're seeing or you're hearing, and you need to do something and pay attention to it.
Feelings, having that feeling to understand people's emotion and body language is key. I mean, there's so much you can learn from someone without them even speaking by just watching how they move in their chair, how are their arms, how are they biting on their back teeth. Like, I watch all of this stuff. With anyone I do, any type of meetings, or I meet a new customer, I learn a lot about their body language. And just by having that unique skill set, you can prepare yourself for that communication that you need next.
Is there another question?
You guys have all made it pretty much to the top, right? And as you've made your way up in your career paths, probably more roles, responsibilities have come along with that. But think about the families too. I was like, oh, look amazing! You get your hair up, and how do you balance it all? How do you do it? How do you balance it? Is there
No balance.
So that's a very good question, and I struggled with it. And I went to a seminar at Harvard, and they took away the question. They said, stop using the word balance, because you're never in balance. It's always this way or this way. So deal with the fact that asking yourself, where am I? Readjust, and change. And that's all you can ever do, and be okay with it. But as long as you're asking yourself that question, you'll always be able to go, if I'm here, I need to be here. And sometimes you go, hey, it's just where I want it to be. Not as often as you like it to be.
Well, I totally agree with Carrie. I think over the years, I adjusted in the present. There were times that I couldn't absolutely handle everything that I was doing, and other times I said, I've got to stay home with the kids for this period of time. And we had 4 children in 6 years. And so law school and jobs and going part-time and just adjusting as I went, maybe teaching a little less, teaching a little more. But I think in my profession, it might have been, especially in teaching, it was probably a little bit easier than the high-powered CEO position. But keeping in touch with law always. But I did. I stepped in, I stepped out, and it does work. I know people will tell you never step out because you'll lose your footing. But it worked for me. It did.
I have to say manage your time, whatever the environment it is. Like Carrie mentioned, things change from day to day. You're true to yourself and you actually accept who you are. So I have extremely curly hair. It's really long, so this takes a little bit of time to look like this. I get it done at my desk. While I'm sitting at my desk, I have people that come in and out of my office. I look like I'm crazy, and that's what works for me because I don't have time to go to the hair salon all the time because it takes too much time. I take my kids to school in the morning, so I don't schedule anything before 9 a.m. unless I absolutely have to. You just make it work, but it changes from day to day. So I said this in my session. It's a give and take. Some days you're neglecting your personal life, other days you're neglecting your professional life. It really is just how that it works. There is no balance. It does not exist.
So I blew it a long time. A couple of years ago, and in my workshop, I shared a quote that I came across in 2015. And it was a quote by a philosopher, his name's Dallas Willard, and he said, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." And the definition of hurry isn't so much about activity, it's about how much we're packing into our brain. Busy is great. Busy is being intentional, and it's being focused, and it's getting things done. Hurry is a hot mess. And I think there are times when we lose track on where that line is at between hurry and busy. For me, it has been a much more peaceful life, understanding what busy looks like. In the last 9 months, I've written 2 books, and my dad died in the middle of it. 3 years ago, when I was writing books, I was hurried, and life was horrible. And this time around, because I learned the hard way of how to eliminate hurry, my mind was at peace, even though there were so many things that were happening around. And so look at your life and ask God to give you a conviction of what busy is and what hurry is, and eliminate the hurry from your life. It will give your heart space to breathe and move, and you can take care of what's most important.
Well, so this is something every day I'm working on. I'm not married and I do not have children. So for me, you think, oh, well, balance, or this idea of balance should be a little bit easier. Well, I find myself struggling with it day to day. And sometimes it's overwhelming, frankly. Sometimes I think, I might be doing really well professionally right now, but I'm not doing so great physically, or I'm not doing so great mentally, or spiritually, or emotionally. And finding a way, and kind of like you said, it's about taking each day at a time. So for me, I might really have a day where I got to the gym and ate a healthy dinner, but I didn't really spend time in my Bible, or I didn't really have any time for mindfulness, which I think is really important. So versus being discouraged by not checking all my boxes, I embrace the journey. I say, well, today I invested in this, and that's an accomplishment for me. I maybe didn't do it all, but it's about taking each day at a time and embracing the journey, and know that you're not going to be perfect. But as you continue on, you can incorporate more things and have more balance, but it's about embracing every step of the way.
All right, thank you, ladies. I think we're gonna wrap things up, so we just appreciate you guys doing this panel for us. Joy, you wanna come on back up here? So can we give our panelists a round of applause? So I have a list of people I want to make sure I thank before we leave. So this is my senior year, so I'm graduating and I'm handing off the conference. Well, I have Nicole will be here next year, but some people I want to thank. Hannah Sinkovitz for emceeing the event today. Noelle, Sarah, and Bethany, who are from our AV team, for doing all the audio and the visual stuff. Dawn Foods for donating those amazing pastries. We had to it. Chartwells for catering lunch. All of our wonderful PAs for the day, who are our personal assistants to all of our speakers, and they were running around doing literally anything we told them to. So thank you guys for being here. Our nail painters for the day in the spa, along with our baristas, Marie and Camille, were here making coffee for us. That was wonderful. Our massage people and Dr. Penn Chiropractic. Also our workshop speakers, thank you. You guys did amazing. I enjoyed every workshop. Sat in little bits and pieces of them. To my committee members, you guys did incredible. You worked tirelessly. I'm so impressed with all of you. I love you all. Nicole, I couldn't have done this without you. You were so on top of it. She puts my type A personality to shame. She's like, oh, already done it. Like, she did so good, and she worked so tirelessly as well, and put in a lot of work and effort into this. And then to Linda and Angel as well. We couldn't have done this conference without you guys keeping us sane, making sure we did everything. Like, did you do this? I'm like, oh. So we actually, Nicole and I have a little something we want to give for you. Where did those go? Kara has them. So they're just little things to say thank you. So yeah. And Nicole is going to introduce next year's other co-chair as well. So.
Yes, so I had the opportunity of working with Laura, and she is an incredible person as well. She makes me sound good, but she is incredible also. So can we just give her a round of applause? I definitely wish I could work with her again, of course. But we also have another wonderful woman that's going to be working with me next year. Can we welcome Hannah Gilliam? Hi, I'm so excited to fill this role next year. This is a really wonderful conference, and I'm just excited to work alongside these wonderful women and just see how we empower each other, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity. So thank you for passing this off to me. I will not fail you. And she did all the decorations today, so yeah, she does a great job, and she will not fail us beyond our expectations. Yes, and then also speaking of next year, our conference date will be April 13th, so make sure to mark that in your calendars. We'll also send you a reminder at the end. And then that's all that we have for you guys.
Actually have two more thank yous. Thank you, American One Credit Union, for sponsoring us today, and First Ring Harbor University for hosting.
Just be sure to fill out your evaluations and hand those in along with your name tags at the registration table. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.